Hello, hello. Thank you for listening to another episode of the ETS Travel Podcast. We're so glad that we're in your ears today. You're listening to another episode, so we definitely appreciate that. I'm John Cavara, and I'm joined with Bethany Barbary here today. We're your ETS Business Development Managers, and today on this episode, we're going to be discussing Lourdes. Lourdes is a very popular destination that is, again, often paired with, multi-country for our Catholic advisors and travelers there. So definitely a lot to unpack for Lourdes. So we'll get right into it here. So give you a little bit of, what to expect about Lourdes and some information here. So, of course, Lourdes, we're exploring one of the most beloved Catholic pilgrimage sites in the world. Lourdes, France, is a place where faith, healing, and hope come together in powerful ways. So Lourdes isn't something that's typically done by itself. It's typically paired with, Fatima, Lourdes, and then also maybe some time in Spain as well. So
either that, or if someone's doing like a France-focused pilgrimage, they'll go and visit other Marian shrines within France itself. So they may either start or end in Lourdes, but they're going to end up going to like Lisieux and Nevers and Chartres and end up in Paris on one end or the other. So yeah, it's a place not commonly visited just by itself, because there is so many places you can pilgrimage nearby as well.
Of course. So we'll start off first with the story of Lourdes here. So first we're going to introduce you to Saint Bernadette and her background as a simple peasant girl. So Saint Bernadette was born in 1844 in Lourdes, France, into a very poor family. Her father was a miller who lost his work, and her as the oldest of 9 children.
They were a very good Catholic family.
Absolutely. And she was the oldest of 9 children. Bernadette was often sick, unfortunately, asthma, and other poor health conditions, and considered uneducated as well. So it's a little bit about her background and her upbringing there. So she was also known for her humility, simplicity, and honesty. Not someone people would expect to be chosen for something as extraordinary as she was ultimately. And then also too, I feel like in the stories of the Bible, God often chooses the small and humble to reveal great things. We see that time and time again with other figures of the Bible. So I would say Saint Bernadette is very much likewise and very comparable to other stories of the Bible as well, with her upbringing and all of that. So did you want to give a little bit more in depth about her story and a little bit more about her upbringing there?
Oh, sure. As it relates to Lourdes, it really is starting in her teenage years. So at the age of 14, Bernadette went with her sister and a friend to gather firewood near the grotto of Massabielle. She saw a beautiful lady dressed in white with a blue sash and golden roses at her feet. So many of you, if you've seen iconography or you've seen statuary, especially throughout France, of Mary, a lot of that was inspired by this vision and is how she's still represented today. So while there, the lady made the sign of the cross and invited Bernadette to pray the rosary. Over the course of 18 apparitions between February and July of 1858, the lady gave messages of prayer, penance, and conversion. So not too different from what the children in Fatima saw. So as we talk about some of these other pilgrimage places, in future episodes, or some we've talked about in past episodes, there's always a common theme of prayer, penance, doing your sacrificing and your suffering for a goal. So in the case of Lourdes, the goal is conversion. So on March 25th, during the Feast of the Annunciation, the lady revealed herself as I am the Immaculate Conception. So this was a Catholic dogma, the idea that Mary was without original sin, pure, 100%. So that had only been declared and officially decided 4 years earlier and was not necessarily widespread, because think about communication at the time. There was no emails, text messages, that kind of stuff. It kind of had to slowly spread. The appearance also emphasized the awe and disbelief of the townspeople, but, Bernadette remained steadfast throughout all of this, despite constant ridicule and questioning and disbelief. One of the highlights, during one apparition, the lady asked Bernadette to dig into the dirt of the grotto and drink from the muddy water. From this act, a clear spring of water began to flow. This is now the famous Lourdes water that you can actually go and see there today. The spring has never run dry since the first miraculous appearance of the spring, and millions of pilgrims still take bottles home each year. So healings began to be reported almost immediately. Physical cures, but also deep spiritual healings of peace and forgiveness and faith. Because most people, they think of Lourdes and they think of paralysis miraculously being cured, or, cancer. They go back to the doctors and it's been shown that the cancer's, slowed or gone away and things like that. But so many people experience spiritual ills and mental ills. And so, a lot of times the healing that can happen during a pilgrimage, especially to Lourdes, can be for that emotional pain, caused by sin and things like this. So again, continuing that message that Saint Bernadette first received, it's so important for the prayer and the penance, and with that can come the true healing. So today's pilgrims, they can bathe in the water and receive blessings with it. The church has officially recognized 70 miracles and countless testimonies of spiritual renewal.
Wow.
Since 1858, more than 7,000 cases of unexplained healings have been documented, but the church, through rigorous medical and theological investigation, has officially recognized 70 as miracles, as scientifically unexplainable and spiritually authentic. So some of the miracles include cures of paralysis, like I talked about, blindness, and terminal illnesses. The very first healing happened just days after the spring was discovered by Bernadette and brought into being. So a local woman, Catherine Latipi, who had a paralyzed hand from an accident, washed it in the spring water, and her hand was restored to full movement. So this early miracle spread quickly and gave credibility to Bernadette's visions. So beyond physical cures, as I talked about before, countless pilgrims testify to just renewed faith, emotional peace, having full-on conversions. So Lourdes is truly considered a place of universal healing. Not everyone leaves physically cured, but they all leave spiritually touched.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's incredible stories there about those miracles. I had no idea. That's incredible. So it's a place of healing, it sounds like, for a lot of our advisors, that maybe they're going through something. Maybe you have clients that are, experiencing an illness, unfortunately, and this could be somewhere that, could potentially, Lord willing, heal them or give them some sort of personal healing, if not physical. And then, of course, it's a place of great spiritual significance. So we'll go over now why Lourdes is central to the Catholic devotion to Mary. So, and then first, that is to remind the faithful that God is love. Mary's presence in a dirty, hidden, damp, cold grotto symbolizes that God's love extends to the poor and vulnerable, joining us in our moments of poverty and failure. So good things don't always happen to those that are wealthy and rich. God often finds those diamonds in the rough, for lack of better words there. So
sure, and it goes back to the themes of the Bible as well, and the stories that you'll see there where, let the least of these come unto me, and God always using the outcasts and the underdogs and things like that. So it makes perfect sense. Like, God didn't stop working in the world when the Bible ended.
Right.
So, he continues to this day to take people from the very lowest of the lows and raise them up to be inspirations for others.
Incredible. And then, of course, going more down the line of the spiritual significance here. So Mary revealed herself as the Immaculate Conception, confirming key Catholic teachings. A heavenly confirmation of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, which signifies her being preserved from original sin. So, in this, Lourdes became a place where the faithful encounter Mary as a loving mother who intercedes for her children. The spring that flowed at Mary's direction at the grotto serves as a reminder of God's mercy and offers healing for both the body and the heart through faith and contact with the water. So then Our Lady instructed Bernadette to tell the priest to come here in a procession and build a chapel here, signifying a call for the church to recognize the importance of this place of grace and build a community of faith. The shrine reflects Mary's role in leading people closer to Jesus through prayer and conversation. And
one of my favorite quotes John is about to share here.
Oh, yeah. So the quote reads as, "I do not promise to make you happy in this world, but in the other." Incredible. So this was Mary's promise as well. This is the cost for following our Lord Jesus. He told us that we must carry our crosses in order to follow him. This entails suffering, but we know that even if we don't experience happiness in the world, we will experience great happiness in the heavenly kingdom with our Lord and all of the saints for eternity. And then, of course, we want to emphasize prayer, penance, and compassion for the sick. And then Mary's message here, pray the rosary, do penance, and pray for sinners. And in this, Lourdes has become a center for intercessory prayer. People bring intentions from all around the world, and then pilgrims often also witness a deep solidarity with the sick and suffering. Every year, thousands of volunteers come to help care for the sick, pushing wheelchairs, assisting in baths. A living sign of Christian love, just caring for others that you may not know and helping them in their journey with God as well. And another quote that you could use as well is, "At Lourdes, the sick are at the heart of the pilgrims, not the margins," which is very powerful there. And of course, there's a high emotional atmosphere there. Candlelight processions, singing of Ave Maria, the sense of peace. There's multiple, torchlight processions there. And it's one of the most moving experiences that I hear from advisors is participating in those candlelight processions. Thousands of people holding candles there.
Yeah, and not just from France. I mean, they're literally coming from all over the world to participate and celebrate and remember and all pray together.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the grotto itself is profoundly peaceful. Pilgrims often describe a sense of heavenly silence, even admin crowds as they celebrate Mass, because it does bring a lot of crowds, of course, but it's awesome that they still are able to find a sense of peace, even with the so many people being there, all for the same likewise reasons. So many say simply kneeling at the grotto is like touching the hem of Mary's mantle itself. The atmosphere there brings comfort, calm, and a tangible sense of God's presence. We are going to break for a quick commercial here, so definitely stay tuned on the other side here, and we're going to go over a little bit more of today's experience and what your clients can expect. So after this commercial break, we'll jump right back into that. All right, and we are back from commercial break here. So, Bethany, do you want to go over a little bit more of what the pilgrim experience is today? Just what our guests can expect, and what they would find themselves, having on a pilgrimage such as this here.
Sure. So February 11th is the Feast of Our Lady of Lourdes. So this is when it's celebrated and when you'll have the largest crowds and that kind of stuff. The weather's still pretty chilly, even though you are in southern France. So, it's not necessarily the best time to go if you don't want to be surrounded by people. But if you do want to be surrounded with the faithful from around the world, that's kind of when you would go. So what our groups will typically encounter when they're visiting Lourdes with us is arranging for a Mass at the Grotto of Massaubel. So this is where the spring came forth upon Mary's instructions to Saint Bernadette. So Masses are celebrated throughout the day. Often they're outdoors right outside of the grotto. So pilgrims will often, outside of the masses, we give them free time and they'll go back to the grotto. And a lot of times they'll bring intentions written by people that couldn't attend the pilgrimage or can't make it to Lourdes, placing them near the grotto, dissimilar to people writing prayers when they're going and visiting the Western Wall.
Right.
So many have described it as profoundly moving to hear the gospel proclaimed where they believe heaven touched earth. And, one of the priests that's led a pilgrimage there before came back and kind of said, I've celebrated Mass in grand cathedrals, but nothing compared to celebrating beneath that simple rock where Mary appeared. And of course, as John talked about before the commercial break, we give time to join into the candlelight processional in the evening. Each evening, every night of the week, thousands gather with candles in hand, praying the rosary all together as they march around the area. So as night falls, even if you aren't participating in that, if you just sneak in to see it, it's absolutely amazing to see all the candlelight and just this whole sea of flickering light as everyone's there praying, singing hymns like Ave Maria, and they'll be sung in the native languages of the pilgrimage. So it's a very unique experience to hear a song that sung in so many different languages. So it's like you can still sing along because you know the words in your language. So it's a very communal while still being a very personal experience. A lot of the anecdotes, pilgrims often say they feel connected to the whole world while holding their own candle of prayer. In that moment, they weren't just praying for themselves. They were praying for the whole world is another thing we hear a lot coming back. And then, of course, because we give plenty of free time in Lourdes, they'll have the opportunities to visit the baths that are built there by the grotto and receive the water blessing. Pilgrims can enter the baths sometimes, but typically anymore, they'll receive a water blessing where the water is poured over their heads or face in a symbolic blessing, just because of the sheer number of visitors and how hard it would be helping everyone get in and out of the bath. So that is the more typical experience. We get that question, or at least I do quite a lot, can I actually get in the water? And it's more typical, especially in the past few years and especially since COVID, to just get the water blessing there. But the ritual still recalls Bernadette digging in the dirt, finding the miraculous spring. And it's less about magical water and more about feeling your faith grow and surrendering into that belief and openness to God's healing. So, the water is miraculous because it leads you in this journey of faith and opens you up to God's healing. So many have described emerging from the baths with a sense of peace and renewal, whether or not they experience the physical healing. So that was a little more like what I talked about before. So many people have talked about the healing they received at Lourdes being so much more than physical, but just thinking of all the things we deal with every day, and, the sins and everything we deal with and psychological and all that kind of stuff. There's so many different kinds of healing that have been experienced at Lourdes, far, far beyond the physical. And another example, a cancer patient once said, I didn't leave healed of my illness, but I left with the strength to face it.
That's powerful.
And that was my miracle. So, it's so important with pilgrimage that you understand it's not necessarily you're going to get a miracle, but you're truly sacrificing and just opening yourself up to God's love and to receiving that. And that's what really makes a pilgrimage versus a vacation. So they'll also get to walk in the footsteps of St. Bernadette. We typically do a full day tour to all of her sites. Pilgrims will get to see Moulin de Boly, which was her birthplace. They'll go to the Cachot, which is the tiny former jail where her family lived in extreme poverty. We talked about her father losing his job while still having 9 children, so, he did the best he could. And you'll even get to visit the parish church where she was baptized. So these places highlight truly her humility and humble background and remind pilgrims that God works through the small and the humble. So many say that seeing Bernadette's simple life makes the apparitions feel even more real and relatable. And even up into her death, she disliked the fame and so much that she became a postulate in 1866, not long after the apparitions. And she spent her time caring for others in the infirmary and later embroidering altar clothes and vestments. Her contemporaries stayed amazed at her humility and spirit of sacrifice up until her death at the age of 35 in 1879. On her deathbed, as she suffered from severe pain, and in keeping with the Virgin Mary's admonition of penance, 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 Bernadette proclaimed that all this is good for heaven. Her final words were, "Blessed Mary, Mother of God, pray for me."
Wow. I'm at a loss for words here. Just the that quote that you shared with the cancer patient, because on a personal level, a lot of us deal with illnesses like this either themselves or with a family member. A lot of it, especially going through treatments that a disease like cancer has, a lot of it is a mindset thing. It's physically terrible for people, but a lot of it is a mindset thing. So that quote again, and then just to repeat it, I didn't leave healed of my illness, but I left with the strength to face it, and that was a miracle alone. So that really touched me personally there. So that's very, very awesome. Definitely, Lourdes, for me, it's not just about physical miracles like that quote said. It's about the miracle of faith and hope and renewal. So we definitely hope that we were able to teach you a little bit more about Lourdes, what it's known for, what it, even today, what to expect when pilgrims do depart on their journey here. And it's a very healing journey for most people. So we definitely appreciate you, joining us here today and as we all learn about stuff like this. So that closes this up today for us. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the ETS Travel Podcast. Definitely like this, subscribe, give us a good review on whichever platform you download your podcasts from. Until the next time, we'll see you then, and hope you all have a blessed time.
Yep. Goodbye, everybody. And remember to pray and open yourself up to healing.
Amen.